Former Trade and Industry Minister says despite a strong foundation laid for Ghana's socioeconomic transformation, he would have done things differently if he were to be the CEO of the country. In a televised address to the nation last night to announce his presidential ambitions, Mr. Kyeremanten said he intends to be a transformational leader by leading what he describes as the Great Transformation Plan (GTP) to save the Ghanaian economy. Key among his plan is to revolutionize the Agric sector. So how exactly does he intend to execute this GTP? Let's take a look at the pointers from his address yesterday. And he says, I wish to use this platform to formally announce my decision to contest the flag bearership of the new patriotic party when party officially opens nominations for that purpose. He said the president has laid a strong foundation for the socioeconomic development of our country. Although I believe there are things that could have been done differently, my vision is to build a superstructure on this foundation that will bring prosperity to our nation. And to avoid going back to the IMF, he says we need a new plan, a plan that will lead us to a more self-reliant and resilient economy. That plan must move Ghana from stability and growth to transformation. And to achieve this strategic goal of transforming our dear country to become the shining star of the new Africa, I will, as a president, launch and lead the execution of the Great Transformational Plan (GTP) of Ghana, which will span the period of 2025 to 2030. And he has 10 pillars from the GTP. He says a strong macroeconomic environment, a new agricultural revolution for Ghana, Operation Own a Farm, industrial transformation, accelerated infrastructure development, digital mainstream, and there is more he talks about in this 10 pillars of the GTP. He says energy security and diversification, decarbonization and climate resilience, national security and defense optimization, downsizing government, strategic engagement with the international community. Those are the 10 pillars of his GTP, the transformation he talks about. I've been joined by General Secretary of the Agric Workers Union, Edward Kariwe, for more on this. First, let's look at the 10 pillars contained in the former Trade and Industry Minister who is aspiring to become flag bearer of the NPP. In his GTP, which he seeks to transform the nation between 2025 to 2030. In there is a new agricultural revolution for Ghana. He says it's called Operation Own a Farm. How does this, all of this come across to you?
Well, let me say good morning and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Of course, the Honorable Minister is seeking the support of Ghanaians, particularly those within the NPP, to be the flag bearer and eventually to run for presidency for this country. So certainly these are his ambitions, and then those ambitions are put there seeking to convince Ghanaians, and particularly those who vote him to become the flag bearer, to accept him. But these are good plans, but as we always say, it's not enough to have good plans. What is more important is about the outcomes of those plans. Some of these plans have been part of the government that he belongs, which has been in power for nearly 8 years. And he himself, as a minister responsible for trade and industry, had a big role to play in achieving those developmental agenda of the government. Unfortunately, we are still talking about the development as though we are now beginning, as though a new opportunity has come for us to correct the wrongs or to start. And that is where the difficulty is. And of course, he's going to compete, so he needs to convince the people.
For you, from where you sit, I mean, you've monitored government's Agric initiatives, planting for food and job and what have you. Now, Mr. Alan Kyeremanten says there are things that could have been done differently in the Akufo-Addo's government. I mean, he's saying that in this transformation agenda, he's looking at Operation Own a Farm. But if you just suppose that to what you have seen in the Akufo-Addo-led government, what would be your expectation if indeed he becomes president?
Well, you know, in the 1970s, we had Operation Feed Yourself and Operation Feed Your Industry, which was very successful to the extent that we are told in 1975, Ghana did not import food into this country. So Operation Own a Farm is similar to Operation Feed Yourself, whereby every Ghanaian is encouraged to grow a little or have a little farm at all costs. But the planting for food and jobs is not too different from that, except that when it came to the implementation of the planting for food and jobs, a lot went wrong. So, yes, you can say that Operation Own a Farm, and all Ghanaians would actually want to do that. But how is that going to be done? You know, the problem I think the government has is not about having good policies, but it's about operationalizing those policies. And he belonged to that government. He still belongs to that government. He had the opportunity to also help correct the problems within the Plan for Food and Jobs program. There's no excuse to say that I was not the minister responsible for agriculture, because he was a cabinet member. And I believe all that happened was had cabinet endorsement, and he was one of them. So I'm not seeing what he could come to do different than what is under the Plan for Food and Jobs. Maybe if he gets the chance, because he wants to be, he is going to be the president. So if he then becomes the president, he's not the person who is going to implement those policies. It is ministers like him, as he is today, who is not a president, but implementing policies. So I'm not too sure that if he becomes a president and he has these ideas, and then you have a minister to implement those policies, he can guarantee us that those policies will be properly implemented. Yeah. So he's still talking about generalities. And when you are at the point of generalities, it's very difficult for one to say, oh, it is not doable. But when it comes to the details, what we know, the history that we already have, the experience that we already have in this country, and particularly with his government, gives a lot of doubt that what he's saying will be done or can be done.
I've been joined by Dr. Bernard Tutu. Edward Kariwe hanging there for me. Dr. Bernard Tutu Boahin. He's a political marketing consultant with the University of Education, Winneba. I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Tutu. I'm much interested in the Agric minister, the former Trade and Industry Minister, beg your pardon, who actually admits that even though there's a strong foundation, there are so many things that could have been done differently. This is a member of the Akufo-Addo government. Does this make him any better candidate for the position? Hello, Doc. Dr. Tutubuahin, are you there? All right, we seem to be having challenges with Dr. Tutubuahin. We'll try and get him back. Dr. Tutubuahin, are you there?
Yes, Asha, can you hear me?
Right, loud and clear now. So I'm asking you what you make of the statement that is coming from the former Minister of Trade and Industry, Alan Kyeremanten, who's declared that he wants to become president. And I'm saying that he has admitted that there were a lot of things that Akufo-Addo government could have done differently. But this is a member of the Akufo-Addo government. Does this admission make him any better candidate for the position?
Yes, Asha, good morning, and good morning to listeners. I think that his speech and the communication that he has put out there, he has actually recognized the good things that the Akufo-Addo-led government, had done. And he believes that there is still room for improvement. And for that reason, he wants to, lead the party as a flag bearer when Akufo-Addo's term of office has ended. It symbolizes a kind of continuation. And then again, it symbolizes some level of departure, from, the administration of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Now, you realize that becomes a bit needful because of the fact that he also must position himself, within the voting market so that he wouldn't be doing the same thing that his government, had done. And it is also very important that we put on record. You see, the fact that he was serving in the Akufo-Addo-led government doesn't mean that every decision that he was part of, he probably agreed with it. Given the opportunity, there are certain things he could have done differently. And that is what I think that he meant by saying that he didn't agree with all the decisions, that were taken. I think that when you look at the things that he has said, when you listen to the tape carefully, when you read, the things that he has put out there, it tells you that even though he believes in the policies of the Akufo-Addo-led government, he has also come up with certain innovations which could add up, to the Akufo-Addo's policy. I.e., moving forward, what should be done differently, to put Ghana on that economic development. Now, he was right in what he said, and this is something that, some of us have argued for, that our economy is not that robust. It is not that sustainable. And for going to IMF for 7 times would probably not change anything. And there is a possibility that if you don't change the fundamentals of our macroeconomics, all right, we would still go back to IMF. So by the time my last born is grown, we might have gone to IMF about 30 times. And that would not be good for us as a country. So we need to build a solid foundation based on agriculture, based on industrialization. And if Akufo-Addo's government has come up with 1 district, 1 factory, that's the 1D, 1F, what is he going to do differently to make sure that the 1D, 1F does not become a mirage, but something that is sustainable, something that will serve posterity, something that will create jobs for the people? Is it the case that we will implement 1D, 1F, but still spend money to import, goods and services into this country? We can't follow on that same trajectory. all right? And there is a need for a departure, there is a need for innovation, there is a need for growth. So if he is saying that he is going to enforce industrialization, all that we need is that he must specifically tell us the details of that industrialization drive. If he's talking about the new agricultural revolution, he needs to put up in plain communication what he meant by that. If he's talking about, how do you call it, mechanization of agriculture, you see, he must come up with tangible policy, that will speak to the Ghanaian people. And if they buy into it, then probably he's somebody who probably can bring the. But he must also be aware that even though, you see, his speech was more or less targeting the national voter, he still has something to do to make himself appealing to the delegates. Because if the delegates don't vote you into power, all right, you cannot fulfill the national agenda. And so he needs to work hard and make sure that he gets the acceptance of the national voter, the endorsement of the delegates, for him to become the flag bearer. And of course, he can just move ahead with the policies that he has. Unless probably somebody is trying to tell me that his communication is directed at both the delegates of his party and the national voter as well. But that's not said. I think that it is an innovation in terms of presidential candidature. It is an innovation from a prospective, presidential candidate. And I believe that even before he goes into his internal election, he has set certain record, a record that is communicating, to Ghanaians that I am Alain Kyeremanten, this is my brand, these are my beliefs, and this is what I want to achieve for Ghana going forward. And I believe that it is something that has been set, and it is going to put other presidential candidates on their toes, and for them to also come out to tell us the direction with which they are going to turn this country. I think that Ghanaians are tired of making promises without fulfilling them. And that, I think, that is another argument we need to focus on and discuss.
Well, Dr. Tutubuahin, one of the key things actually he seeks to do is to downsize government. If you've been following conversations, you will know that this is the biggest frustration of the citizenry. Downsize government so that we can have some relief with our economy. But that hasn't happened. Now, this is a member of government, and people say you didn't have to become president to be able to do that. You could have advised the president to do that even as a member of the government. And if you couldn't do that, and you think that your government has failed in that direction, then you are as well a failure. Hello, Doc. Dr. Tutubuahin, are you there? All right. So we lost Dr. Right. Good to have you back.
Yes. So I think you are right in saying that this is one of the frustrations of Ghanaians, and that is true. For me, when you study carefully the template of the GTP, basically, he is telling us that he is going to do something different. And that is the first question that you ask. And for me, it also suggests that he's a listening person. And remember, he said that he's going to be a transformational leader. And again, he expects that his cabinet, his ministers, would also become servant politicians. Very important to us as Ghanaians. Now, you see, Aisha, it is not the issue of him painting his government as a failure. but it is an issue of him branding himself and positioning himself within the political market, within the hearts and minds of the Ghanaian voter. That is the most important thing, and that is what he seeks to do. As to the question as he could have suggested, to his government for them or for him to implement, you see, I don't think that anybody has evidence that he suggested it and it was not taken.
Yeah.
Or he didn't even suggest at all.
Yeah.
Whether he suggested or didn't, it is still a gap within the political market that he must fill, or that a president must fill. Now, you realize that Ghanaians have lambasted the Nana Akufo-Addo-led government with the size of government. And for a long time, we've not heard anything, we've not seen any change, to the point that the president was even throwing a question back to us, asking us that when we talk about reducing the size of government, or when we talk about changing, ministers, what do we mean? All right. So it is not an issue that probably Alan suggested or didn't suggest, or he could have suggested. All right. Now, he has also seen, because from a marketing perspective, you also must understand what your target market is looking for you to put a program together, a marketing mix program together to satisfy them. And so, if he has identified that this is what Ghanaians are looking for, and if I can make it possible for them, then of course, his product will sell. All right? So I don't assume that after we go to the market to buy something, and that thing will not serve a purpose. So whoever identifies the need of Aisha and put it in the marketplace, when Aisha goes there and finds it needful, Aisha would buy. As simple as that. All right? So my belief is that he's being smart. He's trying to link the problems of Ghanaians, to his ideologies or his ideas, to put a program together that will meet the needs of the ordinary Ghanaian. And for me, it is not a betrayal.
I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Bernard Tutu-Boahen. He is a political marketing consultant at the University of Education, Winneba. Edward Kariwe, if you're still there, you indicated earlier that it's easier said than done, especially from where he finds himself. He hasn't been president, and he doesn't actually know how it feels. I mean, so these are words until they're put into action. And I'm saying that if indeed these ideas were to work, how would you want it implemented?
Well, let me even also say that, yes, the question about whether he gave advice and the advice was not taken, or it was taken, or no advice was
not given at all,
had to do with, governance is effective. So the change that he had today, if indeed probably he gave a advice and it was not taken, when you become a president also, you're not going to work alone.
Yes.
It is still going to be a collective. So that challenge will still come when he finally becomes the president. But we also have to be in mind that this message he sent, he started to those who vote for him, and probably not to all Ghanaians. He will later on come to all Ghanaians for the general vote. That is, if he's able to carry the flag bearer for the party. Then as it starts now, his strategy is to win the hearts of the voters and come out to make him a flag bearer. Now, because it's still, all the things he has said are still at the general level. And he's also very strategic because, and probably, you can't use one press release or statement to apply your strategy. It may not also even be good for him because as a way of he may probably still some of the strategy and holds them as the time goes by. So it will, and I can see that is why he's still at the general level. So it will then be very difficult for someone to say that I would like him to, this is how it is going to be implemented. Because if you're talking about a new revolution for agriculture, the question again is, how is it going to be now? What is the nature of that revolution? Did we have a revolution before? Was the Planting for Food and Jobs a revolution? Is it because we are just using the term revolution? In practical terms, would there be radical change in policy, which we can then call a revolution? We are yet to see those things, and he has not given us details about that. And I also learned that he's saying that there will be a manifesto to that. So the details will come later on. So as it stands now, we have to take him for his own as it is, and then hope that when he comes up with the details, we can then say with certainty as to whether or not his plans can be fulfilled.
Edward Kyeremanten, I'm grateful for your time. He's the General Secretary of the Agric Workers Union.